This is music, and these are 25 of my favorite hard rock and metal songs. This is my contribution to the ongoing thread in the metal part of the vinyl community. It's pretty simple. List your top 25 hard rock and metal songs. Now, I have cheated because these are 25 of my favorite hard rock and metal songs. So it's not ranked. It's not a top 25 list. There are many other hard rock and metal songs out there that are also my favorites. And there are hard rock and metal songs out there that I like better than the ones here. But this list does represent some songs that are just important to me in one way or another. So let's just get down to business. Up first, the title track from Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap by AC/DC. I love the Brian Johnson era and the Bon Scott era equally. There are so many awesome AC/DC songs from both eras. Now, the first AC/DC album I had was actually this one right here. And this is the cassette tape, actually, that I had. The very first album, that cassette tape, and that is Flick of the Switch. But the first AC/DC album I had on vinyl was Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. And so Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap was the first AC/DC song I ever heard on vinyl too. And I think it is a great song. It's crushingly heavy for an AC/DC song. It has this basic, simple main riff, but it's just so heavy and strangely groovy. And I like how the rhythm section, they do, something that's a bit different from your typical AC/DC song. Bon Scott sounds like he's up to no good throughout the entire song, and then he has this fantastic primal scream at the end of the song. So it is a great song, and it's important to me because it's the first AC/DC song I heard on vinyl. Up next, Room for One More by Anthrax from Sound of White Noise. I am now more of a Joey Belladonna guy, but back in the day I had a hard time getting into Anthrax until I heard Only and Room for One More from this album where they had a different singer, John Bush. And especially Only and Room for One More, they just clicked with me. Only is more of an alternative metal song. Room for One More is more of a groove metal song. And that's why Room for One More has the upper hand a bit, because it's heavier, it's groovier. It has an awesome riff in the chorus, which is just groovy as hell. And then the verse has this strangely almost dissonant kind of simple riff going on, and John Bush sounds fantastic on the entire album, but in particular on Room for One More. So Room for One More is one of my favorite Anthrax songs because it kind of made Anthrax click with me. Then I went back and listened to the early stuff, and that clicked even more with me. But that's why Room for One More is an important song to me. Up next, Thrill by Band-Maid from New Beginning. Now, obviously, most of the subsequent songs by Band-Maid are, more complex, more catchy, probably more interesting, better, to be honest. But Thrill, they didn't even write Thrill themselves. But that was the first Band-Maid song I ever heard, so I do have a soft spot for it. And it is a fantastic hard rock song. I think it's groovy, it's funky, it's catchy, it has great vocal melodies and a fun back and forth between Saiki, the lead vocalist, and Miku, the backing vocalist and rhythm guitarist. It is a great song. I love it. It's funky and catchy. And it has, I have a soft spot for it, and that's why that is the Band-Maid song I'm going to mention in this video. Up next, Time What Is Time by Blind Guardian from Somewhere Far Beyond. The first handful of Blind Guardian albums are kind of more speed metal, power metal than just pure power metal. It has the aggression and tempo of speed metal, but it does have the Schlager kind of choruses that you can sing along to from power metal. And Time What Is Time is just a great, aggressive, fast power metal song with amazing riffage and awesome sing-along friendly chorus and just lots of energy, and it's super fast. And I have lots of fond memories of it, listening to it on my Walkman back in the day while bicycling to school. So that's also why it's kind of important to me as a song. Bolt Throwers, The Kill Chain, that is actually my favorite Bolt Thrower song from Those Ones Loyal. It's a death metal song, obviously, but it's a very simple one. Just a couple of riffs in it, but it's super groovy, especially in the verse, and that's why I really love it. It's just that simple one chord, almost groovy riff. I think it is actually a one chord riff. And then you have a simple kind of power chord riff in the chorus, which is also amazing. So I actually think that The Kill Chain is a very memorable Bolt Thrower song too, and it is my favorite song, and I love listening to it while I bicycle to work. So bicycling apparently is a theme in this video. Up next, Carcass's Corporal Jigsaw Quandary, one of the shorter Carcass titles from back in the day, from Necroticism, Descanting the Insalubrious. It's a death metal song, and I really just love the opening drum beat and the riff that kicks in, which is just crushingly heavy, and it's a strangely catchy song for a death metal song too, I think, you know, without it being melodic death metal or anything like that. It's a great song, a fantastic musical journey, and a memorable death metal song too, and my favorite Carcass song of all time. So obviously that's why it's on the list here. Up next, Circle of the Tyrants by Celtic Frost from To Megatherion. What can I say other than No, it is a great song actually. It's kind of primitive, it's dirty, it's fast paced, it has this awesome guitar riff, and the verse is more simplistic. It is a great song. I do genuinely love A Circle of the Tyrants, but hey, Up next, by Count Raven from Storm Warning, True Revelations. I could pick all songs from this album. It's doom metal. It's very repetitive. The songs are kind of built around just a couple of simple riffs. They're kind of slow. Some people have called it a very dense listen, and the densest song is True Revelation, and there's just something haunting about that song, and I do like it when it kicks into a kind of more up-tempo part, but the slow part, the repetitive riff, how the vocals just follow the melody of the riff. I think it's one of the, to be honest, it's one of the best doom metal songs out there. I know it's probably a controversial opinion, but I just love that song. There's also an anti-glam metal song on that album, which is interesting, and it's actually a very good song, although I'm not anti-glam metal myself. Up next, from Symbolic by Death. I could go with any song, to be honest. I'm gonna go with Empty Words, which is a brilliant song. This is a progressive death metal masterpiece, and this is one of my favorite albums of all time. Empty Words has some great sort of melodic but still kind of heavy guitar figures, lots of interesting changes, and although it's a death metal song with harsh vocals, you can actually sing along to the chorus, which I really appreciate. It's a great song. The entire album is a masterpiece. I could have picked any song from this album. Today I just went with Empty Words. Great stuff. Do check it out if you like progressive metal and progressive death metal. More progressive metal. Fates Warning from Inside Out. Monument, my favorite Fates Warning song. I love the drumming in it, especially the drumming. Mark Zonder is a fantastic drummer. Fantastic drumming. It's very melodic. Ray Alder's vocals are fantastic. They're very emotive in this song. It's very well built. It has an odd time signature kind of rhythm, but it's not inaccessible at all. The bass pattern is also just fantastic. It's, in my opinion, it's a progressive metal masterpiece song, and it's my favorite Fates Warning song of all time. Monument, just a big song. Up next, more power metal from Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 2 by Halloween, the title track. I love all the songs on this album, and I probably, to be honest, like the first track on this album much better than, not much, but I like it better than Keeper of the Seven Keys. But Keeper of the Seven Keys is an epic power metal song. Lots of different things going on in it. Lots of changes, lots of different moods, and so on and so forth. And I really like the disease, my friend. That part, for some reason, I just love that part. And a reason why I really appreciate this song actually has to do with my job. So a couple of years ago, I co-taught a course. I'm a linguist, so I teach and research language, and I work with the science of language. But I co-taught a course with a colleague of mine who is a literary scholar. So we did this kind of interdisciplinary course that looked at literature, but also had a linguistic component to it. So we looked at some of the language aspect of a particular genre of literature, and that genre was the literary romance. And while I was reading up on the literary part of it, because I'm not an expert on that at all, I was listening to Keeper of the Seven Keys, and I realized while reading the text, a text, I think it was a textbook kind of chapter or something like, I don't even remember, but a text that kind of describes the genre features of the literary romance. While reading that text, I was listening to Keeper of the Seven Keys, and I realized, holy crap, the lyrics of this song, the narrative, that's a literary romance. It all has to do with quests and all that stuff, right? And that's what Keeper of the Seven Keys is all about. So I had a true revelation there, and I ended up teaching as part of the course Keeper of the Seven Keys, which is just extra cool. That I got to teach German power metal in a sort of English MA, actually, master's level course. That was pretty cool. Anyways, something a bit closer to home, literally to me. Invocators, Doomed to Be from Weave the Apocalypse. This is a progressive thrash metal masterpiece in my opinion, and I could have gone with any song from this album, but Doomed to Be was the song that was the most popular back in the day among the members of the band I was in at the time. I was in a groove metal / thrash metal band, and some of our friends that were in other bands, and just, you know, friends in general, we loved just to listen to Doomed to Be. It's a mid-paced thrash metal song, and some of it sounds like a kind of slow motion death metal song. The main riff, if you were to speed that up, that would just be an old school death metal riff. But it's a great, heavy, progressive, technical thrash metal song from a great progressive, heavy, technical thrash metal album, Weave the Apocalypse by Invocator. Up next, from my favorite album of all time, Somewhere in Time by Iron Maiden. The Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner. Now, the first time I heard this album was when I went on a fishing trip with some kids that were a bit older than me. We had brought a boombox and one cassette tape that was this album here. But the cassette tape was so worn that the writing on the cassette shell itself, all of it had been worn off, so we couldn't see which side was side A or side B. So we just, you know, played the song that, or the side that had been rewound. That was actually side B. So the very, very first Iron Maiden song I ever heard was The Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner. And Steve Harris has gone on record saying that he doesn't really like that song. It's a bit over the top, but that's exactly why I like that song. In addition to it being the first Iron Maiden song I ever heard, it has all the Iron Maiden tropes, the big Bruce Dickinson chorus, the guitar melodies, the twin guitars, the galloping bass, the galloping rhythms, the I wouldn't say mechanical, but the clockwork precise drums by Nico McBride. Just an amazing, just the epitome of an Iron Maiden song. And obviously I liked it because I got hooked on Iron Maiden, and I still am. It is my favorite band of all time. So The Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner. Sorry, Steve Harris, but it's on my list here. I can't say it's my favorite Iron Maiden song because I have so many Iron Maiden songs, and I can't choose one as a favorite. But I wanted to highlight it because it was the first one I ever heard. Okay, up next, controversially perhaps, Turbo Lover from Judas Priest's Turbo. Now, Painkiller, that is my favorite Judas Priest album, and Painkiller, the title track, is probably shared with a bunch of other songs from that album. My favorite Judas Priest song, Nightcrawler, is another Judas Priest song that I really love. But I went with Turbo Lover from Turbo because it is an album that I love, to be perfectly honest. It's an album, it's probably the most accessible Judas Priest album. It's more of a melodic hard rock album, I think. People have accused it of being a glam metal album because they look glammy, but to me it's more of a hard rock album. It has a bit of a synthesizer kind of sound because they use guitar synths on this one. But Turbo Lover, I love the entire album. There's nothing you can do about it. But I particularly love Turbo Lover because, first of all, I love the way it builds up slowly towards a climax. It's a song about having sex, so that kind of makes sense, right? Builds up towards a climax, gets more and more intense. It has a fantastic melodic guitar solo, and I just have so many memories of listening to the entire album, but in particular Turbo Lover, while being on road trips with my family, because my family were, my parents, very, very encouraging. So although they knew this was, a heavy metal song and an album about partying, having sex, rock and rolling, they had no problems with, letting me and my brother listen to this on our car stereo back in the 80s and early 90s when we were kids. Well, I was a kid in the 80s, a young man in the 90s, but yeah, lots of good memories of listening to this on road trips. As I said, I love the album. There's nothing you can do about it. And I love Judas Priest in general. Up next, again, kind of closer to home, where I live-ish, King Diamond. From them, Welcome Home. So King Diamond, he lives in Texas, but he's Danish. And I think he lived in a part of town, a district that neighbors the district I live in. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, Welcome Home. I just love that song because of the guitar riff and the crazy vocal stuff. I mean, that's King Diamond's way of singing in general, right? But it is crazy compared to other artists. But I love his singing style. No one can sing Grandma and make it sound more metal and twisted and demented than King Diamond. And it is a great song with a fantastic riff, great dynamics throughout the song. And again, Grandma, King Diamond, Welcome Home, fantastic song. Another song that's actually very important to me, Zümme 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 by Maximum the Hormone. This was along with an album by a Japanese band called Vigilante. This was the song that got me really into Japanese heavy metal and Japanese rock in general. So Tsume 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 is it's almost like an avant-garde song in a way. It starts out noisy with dissonant riffs and harsh, I would say death metal, grindcore style vocals. And then it sort of morphs into kind of a funk metal song, and then into a groove metal song, then into a very melodic punk song. Maximum the Hormone are kind of a hybrid metal slash punk slash kind of groove funk metal band. And this song has all of it, and it just got me hooked immediately. They have a fantastic drummer as well. So that is a song I really love, and it's a very, very important song to me as well. There's another version of it on an album, but I prefer the single version here. There's also a fun punk song called Effe, and another punk song on this single called Kill All the 394. But Tsume Tsume Tsume, just an amazing punk, metal, whatever song. Up next, from Kill 'Em All by Metallica, I'm actually going with Jump in the Fire. It's the least thrashy song, most kind of traditional heavy metal song from the album, but this was the first Metallica song I learned to play from beginning to end, and we played it in a hard rock band that I was in when I was very, very young. Some of us went on to actually join a thrash metal band that started out being a Metallica cover band, and I think one of the reasons why they kind of thought it was cool to get us into the band was that we could play Jump in the Fire. So that was the first Metallica song I learned to play. I think maybe I learned some of Enter Sandman first, but this was the one I learned to play from beginning to end, to the point that we played it in a band when we were kids. But yeah, and it is a great song. I do love it. I like the main riff, which is just kind of a pentatonic scale with inserted blue notes, so it's more than just 5 notes, and it's very melodic. It's kind of mid-paced. I love the bass pattern as well, and the chorus, and then you have the weird riff in the verse. Great song. Up next, more thrash. Critical Mass by Nuclear Assault. This is my favorite Nuclear Assault album. Critical Mass, my favorite Nuclear Assault song. I like the riff in that song. It's kind of a weird main riff, to be honest, but that's what I like about it. And I like the lyrical message. It's an environmentalist song, which I appreciate, obviously, and it still applies more now than ever, probably. Great song, just a great this. Critical Mass is more of a mid-paced crossover thrash song. Some of the other songs on here are really fast, and they're great too. Obviously, it's my favorite Nuclear Assault album. But yeah, Critical Mass, a song about the environment. Up next, my favorite Obituary album, The End Complete, and my favorite Obituary song is also The End Complete. It's very heavy. I love just the big sound of the drums, of the toms. The snare drum has a very kind of compact sound, which works very well too. But the snares, the toms just have a massive sound, almost an epic sound. And the song has again a very cool build-up based on a kind of groovy riff, kind of heavy riff. And then it does kick into a more up-tempo, kind of very old-school death metal sounding section. It is a fantastic death metal song, and obviously it's my favorite Obituary song, so that's why it's on the list. Up next, from Cowboys from Hell by Pantera. Now I know they are kind of have a problematic history. Some of the members have done some things they've been criticized for, said some things they've been criticized for. There's no denying that Dimebag Darrell was one of the best metal guitarists in my opinion, both in terms of rhythm guitaring playing and the solos. Their last 3 albums I think were not great. To me, my favorite stretch of albums starts with Cowboys from Hell, moves into Vulgar Display of Power, and then you got Far Beyond Driven. And they have this, macho attitude, and that's a bit outdated now. Whatever. This is, in my opinion, is a great album. I love this album. This is my favorite Pantera album. And my favorite song on this album is Domination. It's probably, parts of it are kind of the least groovy stuff, because it has a kind of a more almost like traditional heavy metal kind of main riff, which I really like, and then it goes into a really heavy kind of, admittedly kind of groovy, but not your typical groove metal kind of breakdown with some kind of fun stereo effects going on. It's a great song. I just love it. It's catchy. What can you do? I also like Primal Concrete Sledge. That was probably some of the gnarliest and heaviest music I had heard, at the time. Obviously now I've heard, stuff that's much heavier, but anyways, I do prefer Domination to all the songs in this album, but all the songs, in my opinion, are great, and I am aware Pantera, to some extent, a bit of a problematic band. Up next, though, from Queensryche's Empire, the opening track, Best I Can. It's an upbeat, catchy, heavy metal song with almost an AOR kind of character to it because of the keyboard bursts, but it's just super catchy. Love the chorus. I love the sort of piano-ish kind of opening and the kind of narrative that it tells. It's a kind of very hopeful song, which is nice for a change, if you know what I mean. And they sound great on this album. This is my favorite Queensryche album as well. I don't know which song is my favorite song of this album, but I really like Best I Can. Just catchy, great riffs, nice keyboard bursts. Jeff Tate sounds awesome on this album. Just, solid, strong, catchy song with a kind of an upbeat message to it. Okay, now, Running Wild, one of the most important bands to me. They were up, and still are, but back when I was a kid, they were up, or a young man, they were up there with Iron Maiden, with AC/DC, early Metallica, all that stuff. One of my favorite bands of all time. So I wanted to include a song by Running Wild, but I couldn't, I could pick something from Pile of Skulls, which is a masterpiece of an album. I could pick something from Port Royal, maybe the opening track or something like that, because that's also a masterpiece of an album. Maybe I could have picked an underappreciated album like Blazing Stone, which actually has some amazing songs. But I went, you know what, just cut all that stuff. Just go straight to the source. The first song you ever heard by Running Wild, Under Jolly Roger, kind of an aggressive song for a Running Wild song, even for their older stuff. And it has a great main riff. The chorus is catchy. It's about pirates. It has, cannon effects. I mean, what do you want? It's a great song. I love it. I love most of their other stuff from the 80s and early 90s. But there you go, Under Jolly Roger. From The American Way by Sacred Reich, another hugely important album to me from my formative years. Kind of a mid-tempo thrash metal album. I love all the songs on it, even 31 Flavors, the funk song. But I'm going to highlight in this video Who's to Blame, a really, really fast and aggressive thrash metal song with a creepy opening. Very melodic opening, and you have these, Johnny, can you hear me? Turn that music down, blah, 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 blah. And then at the end of the sort of intro, it's like Johnny's parents criticizing Johnny because Johnny likes rock music. And then they kick the door into his room and they find that he has hung himself, committed suicide. And then the song, super fast thrash metal song, very aggressive, and just a scathing critique of parents that don't listen to their kids and don't allow their kids to enjoy whatever music they want to enjoy. And I really love that. I loved it when I was a kid, and I still love that message. And it also makes me appreciate how fortunate I have been in my childhood, having such supportive parents that would, have no problems with me listening to thrash metal, Judas Priest on our road trips, Iron Maiden, giving me my first AC/DC album on vinyl. Not on vinyl. I actually bought that one, but the first AC/DC album I had, giving me that on cassette tape. So that song actually also makes me appreciate my parents even more than I already do. But it's a great thrash metal song. Now the classic, the title track from Sepultura's Arise, fast, aggressive, quite simple riff if you think about it, but just a great song from beginning to end, super aggressive, super fast, amazing riffs. The simple ones, the more complex ones. It's a thrash metal masterpiece song, and I do really like the entire album as well. So there you go. And the last song on this list is by Solitude Aeturnus, Beyond the Crimson Horizon, and it's Seeds of the Desolate. This is doom metal masterpiece, an epic doom metal masterpiece, and Seeds of the Desolate is probably maybe in the top 3 epic doom metal songs of all time. The 2 other songs are probably Candlemass songs, but I love Seeds of the Desolate. It's moody. It has this heavy doom metal riff and fantastic vocals by Robert Lowe. And it's another album from my formative years, and I have lots of good memories. I don't know, the same thing actually with the Nuclear Assault album. This one and the Nuclear Assault album, back when I was in school, when we had physical education class, part of it was that we had to go to the skating rink and just skate around, and the skating rink was situated a good couple of kilometers from my school. So I have good memories of listening to this one on my Walkman and Nuclear Assault as well on my Walkman while walking to the skating rink. And I would often just keep listening to this stuff while just skating around on my own. So that's physical education for you. But it's an amazing album, and Seeds of the Desolate, fantastic song, great vocal performance, great structure, everything about it is great. So yeah, these were 25 of my favorite metal/hard rock songs of all time. There are other songs out there that are also my favorites, including from this album here, Tigers of the Sea. That's a great song. That's another one of my favorite songs, super important to me. And I just mentioned that to give you, like an example of other songs out there that are among my favorite songs. But there you go, 25 of my favorite hard rock and metal songs. Thanks for watching.